right. So I'm really excited to dive into all this research you sent my way about self-sabotage.
Yeah.
And looks like our main source here is Brianna Weist's book, The Mountain Is You,
Great book.
which I have to say is a pretty powerful title when you think about it.
Definitely.
Have you ever felt like you're kind of your own worst enemy?
Oh, yeah.
Like you're standing in your own way? Like that's self-sabotage in a nutshell, right? Wanting one thing, consciously, but then unconsciously, you're acting in ways that totally prevent you from getting it.
It's such a weird thing, right? That we do that. And Weist, she really nails why we do this to ourselves in the book. And it's not like about self-hatred or anything or a lack of willpower. It's more of a defense mechanism.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we sabotage ourselves to avoid facing like deeper fears and insecurities.
So it's like wanting to eat healthy,
Yeah.
right? But then somehow you end up at the drive-thru anyway.
Exactly. Perfect example. On the surface, you're all about nourishing your body, but then maybe there's this underlying fear,
Right.
of like deprivation or this need for comfort that just kind of drives you towards those less healthy choices.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, Weist, she really dives into different forms of this self-sabotage in the book.
Which does.
And some of them, I think, might really resonate. For example, she talks about uprooting,
Oh, yeah. Uprooting.
which is basically constantly needing a fresh start. So you might be jumping between jobs, maybe relationships, but never really addressing like the root causes of your dissatisfaction.
And what's interesting about that, about uprooting, is that it can actually stem from a fear of commitment
Oh,
or like a belief that you're not good enough
right.
to deserve lasting happiness. So it's easier to run away, start over, than to actually like confront the possibility of failure.
Or rejection.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're running from yourself, huh?
Totally.
Instead of dealing with the issue, you just keep recreating the same patterns in different scenarios.
Over and over again.
She also highlights procrastination, which I think we can all relate to at some level.
Oh, for sure.
We all procrastinate sometimes.
Yeah.
But when it becomes this chronic pattern, there might be a sign of something deeper, right?
Right. And Weiss suggests that it can often be linked to fear of success, actually.
Really?
Yeah. The idea that if you actually achieve your goals, you might become more visible,
Oh.
more vulnerable, or even disliked by others.
I mean, but isn't some level of fear healthy?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, how do we know when fear is holding us back versus protecting us?
That's where self-awareness comes in. Healthy fear, like you said, it helps us stay safe,
Right.
make good decisions.
Right.
But when fear becomes irrational or paralyzing, it can really keep us from pursuing our dreams.
From living a full life.
Exactly. It's about recognizing when fear is based on like real threats versus imagined ones.
So with procrastination, it's like you're afraid of the potential negative consequences of succeeding without even giving yourself the chance to like experience the positives.
Totally. Yeah.
Weist also talks about perfectionism as a form of self-sabotage.
Yes.
And that's an interesting one
It is.
because it's often disguised as a positive trait.
Right.
We're taught to strive for excellence, be the best we can be. But when perfectionism becomes an obsession, it can really lead to paralysis
Yeah.
and procrastination because nothing's ever good enough. Right? You're always striving for this unattainable ideal. It prevents you from like finishing projects or putting your work out into the world.
Totally. The fear of not being good enough, it can keep you stuck in the cycle of self-doubt, self-criticism.
Right.
It can also come from a fear of judgment.
Oh, okay.
Like, if you never finish anything, no one can criticize it.
That's such a good point. It's like you're using perfectionism as a shield to protect yourself from potential criticism or rejection. Now, Weiss also talks about this thing called downplaying success, which is kind of the opposite of perfectionism, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very subtle form of self-sabotage.
Interesting.
Where you're diminishing your accomplishments, downplaying your talents, or even avoiding opportunities that could lead to more success.
Like you're afraid to let yourself shine.
Yeah.
Why do you think people do that?
Well, I think it can be rooted in a few different things.
Okay.
Sometimes it's about not wanting to, like, stand out from the crowd,
Right.
or make other people uncomfortable. It can also be, like, a way of protecting yourself from the pressure of having to maintain a certain level of success.
Once you've achieved it.
Right.
Yeah. Or maybe even a fear of being seen as like arrogant or boastful.
Could be.
It's like trying to fly under the radar to avoid attention or scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the busy trap.
Oh, yeah.
Always running around, filling every second with something,
Yeah.
but never actually addressing the deeper issues that you might be avoiding.
Busyness can be a really sneaky form of self-sabotage because it creates this, like, illusion of productivity and importance. But it can also be a way of numbing yourself out.
Okay.
You know, avoiding difficult emotions or distracting yourself from the things that really matter.
It's like you're constantly on the go, but never really arriving anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And speaking of connections, Weist also talks about surrounding yourself with the wrong people.
Oh, yeah.
Staying in relationships that drain your energy and hold you back.
That's a big one. The company we keep has a huge impact on our lives.
It does, yeah.
If you're surrounded by people who are always negative or critical or draining, it's going to be really hard to break free from self-sabotaging patterns.
So it's not just about cutting ties with, like, toxic people.
Right.
But also being more intentional about who you let into your life, making sure that they're supportive, of your growth and well-being.
Absolutely.
Now, there's one more form of self-sabotage that Weist talks about that I think a lot of people struggle with. And that's worrying about irrational fears.
Oh, yeah.
Worrying about irrational fears can be a way of, like, staying in your comfort zone, avoiding risks,
right,
or just distracting yourself from, more pressing issues.
For sure. It's almost like you're creating these worst-case scenarios in your mind.
Right.
As a way to avoid facing reality or taking action to change it.
We've talked about a lot of different forms of self-sabotage here.
Have.
And I'm sure some of them have really resonated with you. But the good news is that Weist doesn't just leave us with a diagnosis,
Right.
She offers a path forward.
She does.
She provides this, like, framework for understanding these patterns and tools for transforming them.
Exactly.
And it all starts with understanding our triggers.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack that.
Okay.
What exactly does she mean by triggers?
Well, she sees triggers as signposts, not the problem themselves. They point to unresolved pain or areas where you need to grow. So instead of trying to avoid them or suppress your triggers, she encourages you to see them as opportunities for, like, self-discovery.
So it's like those negative emotions are trying to tell us something, but instead of listening, we just try to, like, shove them down or distract ourselves from them.
Exactly. And the more you resist those emotions, the more power they have over you.
Okay.
But if you can learn to approach them with curiosity,
Right.
and compassion, you can start to unlock the wisdom that they hold.
So how do you actually do that? How do you start listening to those negative emotions instead of just trying to avoid them?
Well, Weist suggests that one of the first steps is to simply recognize and acknowledge your feelings.
Okay.
Without judging them. What are you feeling? Where do you feel it in your body?
Right.
What thoughts are going through your mind? Don't try to change it. Don't try to fix anything. Just observe.
I mean, that sounds simple enough, but I imagine it can be pretty challenging, especially when you're dealing with, like, really intense emotions.
Oh, it definitely takes practice.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Right.
And the more you allow yourself to feel those emotions, the less power they have over you.
It's like you're taking the wind out of their sails by simply acknowledging that they're there.
Exactly.
Now, Weist, she talks about a few specific emotions.
She does.
And how we can reframe our relationship with them. For example, she suggests that sadness, instead of being seen as a weakness, can actually be a source of strength.
Oh, totally. Interesting.
Sadness gives you permission to grieve, to process loss, to connect with your vulnerability.
So it's like giving yourself permission to feel sad.
Yeah.
Without judging yourself for it.
Exactly. And guilt, which can be so debilitating, can actually help you identify past experiences
Okay.
that might have shaped your sense of being, like, wrong or burdensome,
It's like a clue.
to help you understand where those feelings coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you can start to challenge those negative beliefs.
Exactly.
Now, what about embarrassment?
Yeah.
That's another one that can be really tough to deal with.
It can.
Embarrassment often highlights those behaviors that are just, like, misaligned with who you want to be.
Right.
And it can be an opportunity for growth and self-reflection.
For sure.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Uh-huh.
It's like every negative emotion, when you really look at it,
Mm-hmm.
can teach you something about yourself.
They really can.
Regret, for example.
Yeah, regret.
It can be incredibly powerful in highlighting unmet needs and desires that you might be ignoring.
Exactly.
So it's not just about, like, dwelling on the past, right?
Yeah.
But using those feelings to inform your future choices.
I like that.
What about fear? That's a big one.
Fear.
for a lot of people.
It is. It can be a powerful motivator, but also a paralyzing force. Weist suggests that instead of suppressing or ignoring your fears, try to understand like the root cause. What are you afraid of? Why are you afraid of it? What are the potential consequences of facing your fear? And what are the potential consequences of not facing it?
Okay, this is all starting to make sense, but it also feels a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
How do we actually do this? How do we move from understanding our triggers to actually changing our behavior?
That's where emotional intelligence comes in.
Emotional intelligence, what exactly is that? So you're talking about emotional intelligence.
Right. Emotional intelligence.
What is that exactly?
So it's basically the ability to understand and manage your emotions.
Okay.
Not suppressing them, which, like we said, usually backfires.
Right.
But like becoming aware of them and choosing how you respond to them.
So it's like the difference between feeling angry and then, lashing out at someone versus like recognizing that anger and then choosing a more constructive way to express it.
Yeah, exactly. It's about recognizing your feelings, understanding where they're coming from, and then even if your emotions are pulling you in a different direction, choosing a course of action that aligns with your values and goals.
That makes sense. So it sounds like emotional intelligence is really key to breaking free from those self-sabotaging patterns. But what about the past? How do we deal with all the, baggage we might be carrying from past experiences?
Well, Weist acknowledges that the past plays a big role in shaping our present behavior,
Right.
but she offers some really powerful strategies for, like, releasing that past.
Okay.
Not by erasing it or anything,
Right.
but by processing it
Okay.
and extracting the lessons it holds.
What kind of strategies are we talking about here?
Well, one technique she recommends is writing a letter to your younger self.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It's a way to offer that younger version of yourself, the understanding, the support, the compassion they may not have gotten at the time. You can acknowledge their pain, validate their feelings, offer words of encouragement and guidance. It's like reparenting yourself in a way.
It also sounds like a way to kind of recognize how far you've come,
Yeah.
to see how much you've grown and learned since then.
Exactly. It's a really powerful way to shift your perspective and cultivate self-compassion.
Now, Weist also emphasizes the importance of mindfulness practices,
Yes.
things like meditation or yoga, as a way to reconnect with your body and, process emotions more fully.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about like thinking your way out of self-sabotage, but also feeling your way through it.
Yeah, exactly. It's about integrating both mind and body into the healing process. She also talks about this idea of emotional backlog.
Emotional backlog, what is that?
It's like all those unresolved emotions we carry with us from the past.
Okay.
So imagine a backpack that you've been carrying since childhood, right? And every time you experience a difficult or painful emotion, you just shove it in this backpack.
Yeah.
And over time, that backpack gets heavier and heavier, weighing you down, and it starts to affect your ability to move freely.
Wow, that's a powerful image. So how do you empty that backpack?
Well, it's about creating space to process those emotions, allowing yourself to feel them fully, and then releasing them.
Okay.
Mindfulness practices can be helpful here, as well as therapy, journaling, or even just spending time in nature.
This all makes sense, intellectually.
Yeah.
But what about those really like deep-seated traumas, the ones that feel like etched into your very being?
Weist addresses this too.
Oh.
She explains that trauma can actually be stored physically in your body.
Wait, so it's not just in your mind, it's like in your muscles and bones.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that physical tension can keep you trapped in this cycle of fear and reactivity.
Wow, that's intense. So how do you release that trauma from your body?
It starts with awareness, paying attention to how your body feels. When you're experiencing those triggering emotions, noticing any areas of tension or discomfort, and then gently working to release that tension through things like deep breathing, stretching, yoga, massage.
It sounds like it's all about reconnecting with your body and learning to listen to its signals.
It is.
Now, Weist also mentions that healing trauma involves like restoring a sense of safety.
Yes, that's crucial. Trauma often shatters our sense of safety and security. It makes us feel like the world is a dangerous and unpredictable place. Healing involves rebuilding that sense of safety, both internally and externally.
How do you do that? Especially when the trauma stems from something that happened in the past.
Well, it's about addressing the specific area of trauma.
Okay.
So, for example, if the trauma is related to, say, a past relationship, Healing might involve building healthy and supportive relationships in the present.
Oh, okay.
Or if the trauma is related to a loss of control, healing might involve reclaiming your agency and making empowered choices in your life.
So it's about like taking back your power, rebuilding trust, and creating a sense of stability and security in your life.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about releasing the past and building emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
But what about the future?
Right.
How do you actually start creating a life that's aligned with your like truest self?
That's where Weist's concept of the highest potential future self comes in.
Okay.
And it's one of the most exciting and empowering parts of her book.
Okay, tell me more about this highest potential future self.
It's about envisioning the best possible version of yourself in the future.
Okay.
The you that has overcome those self-sabotaging patterns and is living a life that's truly aligned with, their values and purpose. It's about tapping into the wisdom and clarity of that future self and using their guidance to inform your present actions.
So it's like asking your future self for advice, but how do you actually do that?
Through visualization. Weist guides you through this really powerful visualization exercise where you imagine meeting your highest potential future self.
It sounds a bit like a guided meditation. I'm kind of curious to try this.
Oh, it's great.
Walk me through it.
Okay, so close your eyes and imagine yourself a few years down the road. You're living this life that feels fulfilling and meaningful. You've achieved your goals. You're surrounded by people you love.
Okay.
And you feel this deep sense of peace and contentment. Really step into this vision. What are you doing? Where are you? Who are you with? What do you see, hear, smell, taste, and feel?
I love how sensory this is. It's like you're really there.
Right. Now imagine your highest potential future self approaching you. Take a moment to just observe them. What qualities do they embody? What kind of energy do they radiate? What do you notice about their appearance, their demeanor, their way of being in the world?
This is so fascinating. I'm starting to get a glimpse of my own highest potential future self.
Now imagine having a conversation with this future version of you. Ask them for guidance. What advice do they have for you? What steps can you take to move closer to this vision? What challenges might you face along the way, and how can you overcome them?
I'm starting to feel this sense of clarity and direction. It's like my future self is giving me a roadmap.
And here's a powerful symbol. Imagine your future self handing you a set of keys. These keys represent the tools, the resources, the wisdom you need to unlock your full potential and create the life you desire.
Wow.
Take those keys and hold them in your hand. Feel their weight, their texture, their energy.
This is so powerful. It's like I'm receiving a gift.
It is. It's a gift of guidance, support, and empowerment. Weist suggests that the more you connect with this vision and embody the qualities of your highest potential future self, the more you'll start to attract the experiences and opportunities that will help you create that reality.
This whole concept is blowing my mind. I'm starting to see self-sabotage in a whole new light. And it's actually making me feel more hopeful. Like I have more control over my destiny than I thought.
That's the beauty of it. You're not powerless. You have the ability to choose a different path, to break free from those self-sabotaging patterns,
Right.
and step into a future that is aligned with your truest self. But remember, change takes time and effort. It's not a quick fix. It's a journey of self-discovery and growth.
Okay, so we've talked about releasing the past, building emotional intelligence, and connecting with our highest potential future self. But let's get even more practical here. What are some tangible steps we can take to kind of bridge the gap between that ideal vision and our current reality?
Well, Weist offers a whole toolbox of strategies, but one of the most important shifts she recommends is to focus on cultivating inner peace rather than constantly chasing happiness.
That's interesting. Why inner peace over happiness?
Because happiness, as we often think of it, is fleeting. It's dependent on external circumstances, on things going our way.
Right.
Inner peace is a more stable and enduring state of being. It's about finding contentment and acceptance regardless of what's happening around you. Like finding that calm in the center of the storm.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal.
Oh.
But how do you actually cultivate inner peace? It sounds kind of esoteric.
It's more practical than you might think. Weist emphasizes the importance of aligning your goals with your core values and principles. It's not just about achieving any goal.
Okay.
It's about pursuing goals that are in harmony with who you are at your deepest level.
So it's about identifying what truly matters to you and then making sure your actions are in alignment with those values.
Exactly. And it can explain why you might achieve a goal and still feel unfulfilled. It's because the goal itself wasn't aligned with what truly matters to you.
This is making me want to do a serious inventory of my goals.
Yeah.
So let's say you've done the work of identifying your principles and aligning your goals. What are some practical steps you can take to actually start moving from self-sabotage to self-mastery?
Weist offers a range of strategies, but here are a few that really stand out.
Great, let's hear them. So before we went to the last section, you were about to tell me about some of Brianna Weist's strategies.
Oh, right. So first, she really emphasizes adopting personal principles to kind of guide your actions.
Okay.
It's about moving beyond just good intentions and creating a set of like guidelines for yourself that will help you stay on track even when things get tough.
It's like creating a personal code of conduct, a set of rules to live by.
Exactly. And it's not about being rigid or anything. It's more about like having a framework that gives you clarity and direction when you're faced with, those tough choices.
Right, like that. What else?
Another good strategy is to make plans to address challenges instead of just worrying about them.
Oh.
Worry is like a form of self-sabotage in itself.
Right.
Keeps you stuck in that cycle of fear and inaction. So instead, she encourages you to shift from worry to problem solving.
Oh.
Identify the issue, brainstorm potential solutions, and then take action. Ask yourself, what steps can you take like today to start moving forward?
That's a good point. It feels way more empowering.
It is.
It's about taking control instead of letting anxiety run wild.
Exactly.
I can see how that would be helpful.
And remember, you don't have to do everything alone.
Oh, that's true.
It's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
Whether it's a friend, a family member, a therapist, a mentor, reaching out for support can make a world of difference.
That's a good reminder. It's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking you have to do everything yourself.
And it is. Weist also talks about the importance of letting go of the past.
Okay.
Not by ignoring it,
Right.
but by, extracting the lessons it holds and moving forward with wisdom and compassion for yourself.
So it's about turning those past experiences into fuel for growth rather than letting them hold you back.
Exactly. And finally, don't forget to schedule time for joy and play.
Oh, that's a good one.
It sounds counterintuitive, but in our, super busy, goal-oriented world, it's so easy to let those things fall by the wayside.
It is.
Weist reminds us that these activities, they're not frivolous.
Yep.
They're essential for our well-being.
Yeah.
And they impact our ability to, show up in all areas of our lives.
That makes sense. If you're constantly running on empty, you're not going to have the energy or the creativity to pursue your goals or even, nurture your relationships.
Exactly. It all comes back to that idea of inner peace. When you prioritize joy and play, you cultivate that sense of balance and contentment that allows you to approach life with more ease and grace. This has been such a rich and insightful conversation. I hope you're feeling inspired to start applying some of these principles in your own life.
I am.
Remember, even small shifts can create massive momentum. It's not about overnight transformation. It's about consistent, intentional action.
Absolutely. Understanding self-sabotage is like the first step to overcoming it. You have the power to change your life. It might feel daunting at times, but you've got this.
You do.
As you keep exploring these concepts, think about one small, actionable step that you can take, like today, to address a specific self-sabotaging behavior you might have. Even a tiny shift can create momentum towards, a more fulfilling life. What resonated with you the most today? What feels most relevant to you?
Yeah, think about that. And also, just remember, even being aware of these patterns is huge. It's like shining a light on those unconscious behaviors that have been holding you back. Now that you see them, you can start to change them.
This has been such an incredible journey of self-discovery. It's like we've climbed a mountain of self-sabotage and reached a peak of self-awareness.
I love that. And remember, the journey doesn't end here. It's about continuing to explore, to learn, to grow, and most importantly, to be kind and compassionate with yourself along the way.
Beautifully said. And as always, happy deep diving.
Thank you for joining us at Wisdom House, where we bring you timeless insights from the greatest books. If you found this deep dive valuable, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom House. Stay curious, stay inspired, and we'll see you in the next video.